True testimonies on this platform revealed. In God's love, forever bright. True testimonies on this platform revealed. In His love or gratitude, sealed.
Welcome back to TTU TV. This your girl, Just Jessica Ville. Listen, we're on episode 5 of this new series that God called me to do since 2020, titled The Trump Effect, right? Now, why would I name it The Trump Effect? Because we really knew we was close to the end times when Trump got in office. It was like there was no denying, right, about that. And so this podcast is not to scare anyone into obedience. That's not what this is. This podcast is to alert you on why, if you've been feeling, and more than likely we know that you have, the tug and convictions of God for you to come into intimacy with Him. God is definitely calling on us in this hour. The Bible books that He took me through, if you guys were not here, was the book of Joel, the book of Isaiah. First series we did on this back in 2022. No, 2020. Well, when I did this, it was like 2-3 years ago. With me and Aaron Farewell. This was the first series that we did. And we were talking about the election. It was when Trump was going into running again. When he decided he wanted to run again, we did the first series on restoring the temple, right? And we were exploring the agenda of the stakeholder capitalism and the purpose of Trump election. And we were talking about this because of the simple fact that, number one, God is calling us into a relationship with Him because we have to be in preparation before Jesus returns. We all have to be in a position of clean hands, clean heart. The scriptures say Jesus come back for a church with clean hands, clean heart. When Jesus comes back, there's going to be a new heaven on earth. Anything else that is unlike God is going to fall, right? It's going to be destroyed. And so God is calling us into an intimate relationship. The purpose of the first series was to pretty much highlight a timestamp, right? Trump getting back in office, stuff is about to hit the fan. Pretty much, right? We were pointing out all of the highlights of what's been going on, the shifts that we've been experiencing, which revolved around, the AI, the real agenda behind the COVID, the vaccines, the control, right, of us taking the vaccines, the mandate, just how the New World Order is creeping in slowly. We were talking about all of those things, right? And from my perspective, I'm bringing up Bible scripture. So those who, are Christian or is curious about Revelation, you understand where we are in timestamp. Now, we're not sitting here telling you that we know the time Jesus is coming back. We're telling you that it's close. It's real close, because all of these timestamps are highlighted in the Bible, and God has brought them to my knowledge to be able to share them with you. This series, The Trump Effect, is going into more of meat and potatoes, and people are not aware of a lot of political mumbo jumbo arenas, facts, history. I mean, I know I wasn't, right? And a lot of people are just not. But this is God's grace. This platform, this podcast, God calling me to do this, is His grace of being able to educate those who know nothing about anything, who have a hard time comprehending, as well as those Bible scholars that just feel like Jesus ain't coming back right now. God is showing the alignment of His scriptures and what's happening and what He decreed. And so listen, don't go nowhere. We'll be right back.
The Trump Effect. Kingdom versus culture. In a nation once united by liberty, now divided by loyalty. Wisdom grows beneath the surface. Following the Israel 2024 election, the world watches as the weight of one man's return shakes systems, steers nations, and sparks spiritual warfare in the heart of America. This isn't just politics, this is kingdom versus culture, truth against deception, faith in the fire of controversy. Welcome to the Trump Effect, Kingdom versus Culture, where we decode the aftermath, expose the agendas, and uncover what heaven is saying, and the world is shouting.
Okay, so we are back. So originally, this series started from the book of Revelation, right? But we didn't just jump into Revelation, although we were speaking of the cross-referencing decrees of the Lord and of Abba about, Revelation and end times and etc. But we didn't jump right in and say, hey, this is Revelation. We jumped in and we said, hey, this is what God pointed out. So we talked about the book of Joel, like I said, where God was speaking to Joel about a past time of judgment, a future time of judgment, basically, right? And how it would be alike. And so Joel was just crying out and he was speaking about these things, as well as God spoke about restoration. This was basically God using his vessels, his mouthpiece, right? Because God is a spirit. We have to remember that. God was using his mouthpiece to speak about what was to come. He's shown them, right? Especially those who have eyes to see. He's shown them, and they had their job is to speak it. So Joel was warning everybody about that. He also was speaking about in the second chapter, about the warfare that would come and the fact that it would be God's justice. But he didn't say on which sins. And so God had brought me to the book of Joel to show me pretty much his principle of him breaking up the fallow ground, right? The threshing floor, which is breaking up all the familiarities in our lives that built us up to who we were today or are today. But we know that we must die to self, right? We got to be renewed in our minds, and that the Bible say that we are new creatures. And so God's method of breaking up the familiarity, the old, and now inviting you into his kingdom and showing you the new, he does it in mysterious ways. God is dynamic. I mean, he gets the job done however he see fit and however he need to do it. And so that's what we were talking about with the book of Joel. Then we went over to Isaiah 23, where God was speaking of the empire, right, of the worldly systems that has been governed by pride and arrogance, which he spoke to me about it being Babylon, right? Because Babylon is just an empire. I mean, it's a wealthy business in the system that has been successful. So he was speaking about the Babylonian empire, but he was speaking about how it was built on trade. It was built on pride. The trade was built on pride. The decisions that was made was built on pride, and how it was leading us down a road to a new world order, right? And how the merchants and those who have stakeholder capitalism, the most wealthiest people in the world, basically how they have an agenda to control us. There's going to be a new world order. And so he does show me about AI and etc. And today we're going to talk a little bit about the book of Obadiah, right? And so there we have it. The book of Obadiah is basically speaking of God declaring wars. There's wars. He's declaring wars on those who basically are unrighteous, right? Because he's speaking about the descendants of Esau, right, who's Jacob's brother. But he's also speaking about how they are being judged. And that speaks of the spirit of jealousy, right? Because let's be real, Esau only did what he did, because he was jealous of Jacob. he only did what he did because of envy, that Jacob was the firstborn and that he was getting the inheritance from the father. And so he did it out of jealousy. And so it's the same difference, right? Because God also talked about in the last podcast series that me and Aaron did on when Trump was, still running for office before he actually won the election again. God was speaking about the Tower of Babel and how they built the tower to try to get into heaven. All of these books is history repeating itself. But God highlighting it to me is him basically affirming why he gave me this dream years ago and where he's taking us, his children. So this is like a warning to say, hey, listen, get in alignment, right? Because God is not playing on judging the world, right? And now we're back to the foundation of this podcast. So in Revelation chapter 18, God says, come out of the world because I'm about to judge her, right? Come out of her. That means come out of the world. Her being a nurturer. Women are nurturers, right? Women are nurturers by nature, right? We help, take care of whatever the original design is, right? So God created Adam first and then he made Eve from his rib. So whatever Adam's assignment was, Eve was to assist that. And so the same difference, right? Eve is there to nurture it. You take care of the small areas, you make sure that it's healthy, right? It's like a baby, right? We are nurturers and we are God's babies. We are his children. And so for the earth to be where we're supposed to actually have pleasure, where we're actually supposed to have peace and multiply and be fruitful, and they're making this a prison for us with this new world order. So we know about the book of Revelation. It talks about verses 1-3. It talks about God's divine judgment. He announcing it from heaven. And, verses 4-5, it talks about God calls the separation. This is another thing. The fallow ground, God was talking about separation. He wanted us to separate from those who were not trying to go down the paths of their spiritual journey, getting to know God better. Those who are not they're not true in their obedience, right? Because you could be obedient and make flaws, right? But then you repent because you truly wanted to be obedient in the first place, right? But then you got those who are really built with pride and arrogance and ego, and they really just want to do things their way. And so God calls us to separate from them because God is bringing judgment. It's the same thing, descendants of Esau. So God is bringing judgment. So this is why he walked us through the book of Joel. And so, verses 6-8, it talks about, God bringing justice, 9-10, verse 9-10 talks about the lament of the kings. And so we were talking about in the last episode about how merchants became princes, right? Merchants, those who are business owners, but those who also have wealth, right? How they became princes, right? Their crown, they became royal, right? Which means they're placed in positions of authority and power. And so from this, standpoint, we're talking about political power. We're talking about economic power. Even it was a bio war that the Bible talks about in the book of Revelation. And all of these things are people in position that's supposed to be there to nurture the earth, to govern the earth, but they are taking advantage of the people in the earth and the earth. Right? Because even with AI, that whole system of AI growing, the more AI energy is on the earth, the more the air is polluted, which takes oxygen away from us. And so it taking oxygen away from us, the plants are not going to be able to sustain us. That's the problem. Even me and my friend, we was watching The Matrix. And when you start watching, I think like part 2 of The Matrix, part 3 of The Matrix, you realize that they were living in a whole different world from actual real reality when they start talking about red pill, blue pill. And so we look at these things, even with our robot, we look at these things and we see that the movie's been telling us this for a long time. And it's another movie. I'm gonna bring to y'all maybe in the next episode, or I'll post it on my social media. But it's another movie where there's a guy who was actually working for the AI system, and they framed him basically. But because the way the system was set up, it got face recognition. So anywhere that you go, the cameras recognize his face. They were using robots as a police force. They were using spiders to be able to sense out your energies, just to take you into captivity, to arrest you. But he was being framed, but the odds against his freedom was slim to none. Once he got caught, he was done. But because he worked in the system, trying to remember the name of it so bad, because he worked in the system, he knew how to fight for his freedom. But basically, when a new world order comes and they implement this AI system, and they grow it and enhance it, you could be framed for something that you didn't do. They can cut off your bank account for crazy laws that don't mean nothing, and then you won't be having access to your money. Everything will be electronic, and they will find a way to just control you. It's a system of control. And so we're just going into the scriptures. So basically that's really so verses 17 and 19, book of Revelation, talks about the lament of shipmasters. Verses 11 and 17, I'm sorry, I forgot those verses. It talks about the lament of merchants. All of this is talking about, in verses 20, it talks about heaven rejoices while earth mourns. Just all of these things in the Bible, it sounds so cosmic, like I spoke about in the last episode. I'm trying to find my best way to break it down to you all so that you're able to understand. God spoke to me a long time ago about my mantle, how I'm so big on comprehension. There's so much that has been done in the politics, even in Revelation, that we perish for. The Bible says in the book of Hosea, we perish for the lack of knowledge because we don't understand. So I try to make it simplified so that people can get it. And so again, today we are talking about God's war on corrupt economies, right? Because we have all of these wars, right? We got Venezuela, we got all of these things going on, and it's like you're hearing about it one after the other after the other. And if you're anything like me, when I hear about these wars, I tune it out. And that's bad because God called me to podcast on it. But like I'm tired of hearing it. And it's like it's constant bad. Nobody wants to continuously hear about bad. So y'all already know my daughter's here, Bree, and we also got Aaron Farewell returning. Those of you may know him as AJ. And so we're going to read about the book of Obadiah. I'm going to see if she can read the book of Obadiah for us really quick, the NLT version, which is a real simple version for you guys. It's a real short book in the Bible. But the book of Obadiah, it basically talks about God bringing judgment on those who have built and established nations, but done it again, right? Because it doesn't matter whether he's talking about the empires, the nations. It's all about those who have created systems that did it outside of his governance, well, outside of his control, outside of his will, right? Because if they take God's ability to govern and whatever they're doing away, then they're doing it according to their flesh. They're doing it according to their own will, out of pride and ego, right? And so God is casting judgment on that. But God also spoke to me about, at the very end of the book of Obadiah, how he speaks about God is going to be king again, right? Even in their empires. This is speaking of the new heaven that is coming here on earth. In the book of Joel, God talked about us crying out, us going to war. In the book of Obadiah, God talks about going to war as well. How do we war? Well, we know that we war spiritually. We don't war carnally. We war spiritually. And so that is what this podcast is sent to do, not to scare you, but to teach you that this is a time for war. Hey, Bree girl, what's up, girl? She in the building. If you can kindly read the book Obadiah for us, the NLT version, it's real short, but some people, I mean, I know myself, I had read the Bible for years, and then I really said to God, I said, God, I ain't never read the book of Obadiah before.
Yeah.
You ain't take me there
Yeah,
recently.
absolutely. I've definitely felt the same way. And so, as mentioned, I'm going to go ahead and get into it for the NLT. And so, starting off, this is the vision that the sovereign Lord revealed to Obadiah concerning the land of Edom. Edom's judgment announced, "We have heard a message from the Lord that an ambassador was sent to the nations to say, 'Get ready, everyone. Let's assemble our armies and attack Edom.' The Lord says to Edom, 'I will cut you down to size among the nations. You will be greatly despised. You have been deceived by your own pride because you live in a rock fortress and make your home high in the mountains. Who can ever reach us way up here?' You ask boastfully. But even if you soar as high as eagles and you build your nest among the stars, I will bring you crashing down, says the Lord. If these came at night and robbed you, what a disaster awaits you. They would not take everything. Those who harvest grapes always leave a few for the poor, but your enemies will wipe you out completely. Every nook and cranny of Edom will be searched and looted. Every treasure will be found and taken." Verse 7. All your allies will turn against you. They will help to chase you from your land. They will promise you peace while plotting to deceive and destroy you. Your trusted friends will set traps for you, and you won't even know about it. At that time, not a single wise person will be left in the whole land of Edom, says the Lord. For on the mountains of Edom, I will destroy everyone who has understanding. The mightiest warriors of Teman will be terrified, and everyone on the mountains of Edom will be cut down in the slaughter. Verse 10. Reasons for Edom's punishment. Because of the violence you did to your close relatives in Israel, you will be filled with shame and destroyed forever. When they were invaded, you stood aloof, refusing to help them. Foreign invaders carried off their wealth and cast lots to divide up Jerusalem, but you acted like one of Israel's enemies. You should have not gloated when they exiled your relatives to distant lands. You should not have rejoiced when the people of Judah suffered such misfortune. You should not have spoken arrogantly in that terrible time of trouble. You should not have plundered that land of Israel when they have suffered such calamity. You should have not gloated over the destruction when they were suffering such calamity. You should have not seized their wealth when they were suffering such calamity. You should have not stood at the crossroads killing those who tried to escape. You should have not captured the survivors and handed them over in their terrible time of trouble. Edom destroyed, Israel restored. Verse 15. That day is near when I, the Lord, will judge all godless nations. As you have done to Israel, so it will be done to you. All your evil deeds will fall back on your own heads. Just as you swallowed up my people on my holy mountain, so you and the surrounding nations will swallow up the punishment I pour out on you. Yes, all you nations will drink and stagger and disappear from history. But Jerusalem will be a refuge for those who escape. It will be a holy place, and the people of Israel will come back to reclaim their inheritance. The people of Israel will be a raging fire, and Edom a field of dry stubble. The descendants of Joseph will be a flame roaring across the field, devouring everything. There will be no survivors in Edom. I, the Lord, have spoken. Then my people living in the Negev will occupy the mountains of Edom. Those living in the foothills of Judah will possess the Philistine plains and take over the fields of Ephraim and Samaria. And the people of Benjamin will occupy the land of Gilead. The exiles of Israel will return to their land and occupy the Phoenician coast as far north as Zarephath. The captives of Jerusalem exiled to the north will return home and resettle to the towns of the Negev. Those who have been rescued will go up to Mount Zion in Jerusalem to rule over the mountains of Edom, and the Lord himself will be king.
And the Lord himself will be king. So God is speaking about literally taking over what they have built, right? Because it was supposed to be his from the beginning. God's supposed to be using him. See, this book talks about siblings because at the end of the day, we are human and we all God's creation. But you have those who are rebellious. You have those who, what happened in heaven?
The pudding.
God kicked Lucifer and all of them out because they were rebellious. But everybody and everything is still God's creation. Mm-hmm. But you choose not to comply. You choose not to be obedient. And so we understand that from the book of Obadiah, right? It condemns Edom for taking advantage of Judah. Judah means praise, right? Judah means praise. So those who worship God. And remember, I told you before that in the last episode, I told you that you can be worshiping a person, a place, or a thing when you become codependent on it more than you become dependent on God. And so that's still a form of worship, right? So
idolizing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that becomes idolatry.
Mm-hmm.
So Obadiah condemns Edom, and God showed Obadiah a vision. That's how we got the book of Obadiah. So Obadiah condemns Edom for taking advantage of Judah during its downfall. So Judah was being chastised, right? Because God said he chastised those whom he loved. So if Judah was experiencing a downfall and God allowed that, then Judah was being chastised, but Edom took advantage of them. So Edom's sin was not just violence, but economic opportunism. Opportunism, betrayal, and pride, right? Mm-hmm. God declared that Edom's downfall will mirror, right, the harm it inflicted on others. Same decree God made when he said that you will fall in the same pit that you dug for me. Mm-hmm. And so God is judging the nations. He's judging them and he's stirring them up. He's stirring them up. This is why, hence, we're seeing the wars going on now, where it just seems like all of this stuff is messy. Because God is stirring them up. Because their whole thing is they're holding on to power. They're holding on to power because they have money. Mm-hmm. They have money. They have trade. They have wealth. And so that's their puffed up chest, right? It's the same thing that's going on with the World Economic Forum, which is AKA the New World System. They're puffing up their chests, right? They're puffing up their chest because of what they possess, not because of who they know, right? They're puffing up their chest because of the finances that they have.
The finances, the power, the connections, the networking,
all of that. Right. Not because of who they know. Because for us, our flesh is the fact that we know God.
Absolutely.
And all of his attributes. He's our provider. He's our healer, right? And so we know God. That's the greatest glory that we could ever have. And the glory is not ours, it's God's. And so now that we understand that, God is now messing with what they worship. This is why he said, come out of her, come out of the world. because they worship money. So guess what? God is going to take the value of money away from them. And this is why the last episode that we were speaking about was the value of gold and silver, and how our dollar, the currency of the dollar, is no longer really valued as much. It's losing its value. And so when we understand that, right, and let's welcome Aaron Farewell to the stage. When we understand that, right, we understand that God is not, he's not judging us per se. He doesn't want to see us, suffer. It's all about where our mindset is. If our mind is in the right place, as the Bible say that those who keep their minds focused on me, right, shall have perfect peace. It's all about our mindset. The Bible say that the just shall live by faith, right? Even in our walk, we shall walk by faith and not by sight. So when we realize these key factors of who God is, and we understand our identity, then we know what to put our trust in, what to depend on, or shall I say who. Because God is taking away, this is the fall of Babylon. This is a great deal in the fall of Babylon. And what else may come about, right? But taking away the value of the dollar, when they only had big heads, puffed big heads, big shoulders, and you know what I'm saying, they were swole because they had the dollars. If that is no more value, then what do they have? So we're welcoming Aaron Farewell to the stage. Can you, Aaron, do you have anything to speak to what we just said before we start asking you questions?
No, not at this time. Thank you for inviting me back, and happy to answer all questions.
Okay, so we were just talking about the world, right? Economic form. We were speaking about it. I showed a video about it a few episodes ago. But if you can speak to that, that would be great. Because I think that video was like 4 minutes long. I don't think we want to do that. Can you just give a refresher and talk about the stakeholder capitalism?
Yeah, so in the world of business, currently the dominant form of business that's done is known as shareholder capitalism. So with shareholder capitalism, what that is when you're running a business and your business is traded on the New York Stock Exchange, the NASDAQ, and the London Exchange, and the one in China. I forgot the name of the one in China. Well, those are your major ones. I think there's another one. When your business is traded, the only way that happens is when you have what's known as an initial public offering, where you offer to the public the opportunity to own a share of your business. And so every shareholder has a say in your business. So when it comes to the health of your business, each shareholder is looking for a return on their investment in your business. So that's shareholder capitalism, where it's just about the profits and everybody's ability to make money off of the success or failure, in some cases, of a business. So that's shareholder capitalism. Stakeholder capitalism is moving you into a more, the idea is for it to be a socially sound system. So the business has a responsibility to everyone who has a stake in the business, not a shareholder. Shareholder is just pure capitalism. Stakeholder capitalism still involves capitalism, which is the ability to make a buck, make a profit, but you're making that profit with social climate in mind. So what that can look like in real time, given the way people operate right now, is that looks like a business makes a decision based on the political climate and not for the sake of the business or the health of the business or the business's profits. They will make a decision based on the governing structure. So let's say everybody's bound to the UN, the United Nations, right? Every major government, the majority of the major governments of the world have agreed to answer to the United Nations. And so with stakeholder capitalism, if your business is operating that way, then you have people in your business who attend all UN meetings. And whatever the agenda of the UN is, your business, depending on what it does, has to play a part in advancing the objectives of the UN globally. So you want to be globally responsible. That's going to be a term that will come up for those people and those companies that partake in that system. Now, that system is supposed to be being birthed. There are people who want that to come into existence. The United States does not want that to come to existence because then it kicks them out the way. And Donald Trump and JD Vance have said publicly in the forums where those people are talking about, hey, come on in, we want you to do this. They've said to them to their face, no, we're not going to do it. In fact, you're going to stay on our system and you're going to need us more than we're going to need you. So Donald Trump and JD Vance have said that publicly to the very people who would like to see stakeholder capitalism come into play, because it's a threat to the United States. And the United States has been responding to that because they view that stakeholder capitalism as a threat to them, which it is a threat to them.
Thank you for that. And so it's clear that the stakeholder capitalism, stakeholders is literally for society. It's for society. It's supposed to be a way to help govern us, right? To give us an ideal of a sense of identity, right? Because society it controls our perspective. It controls our perception and how we wake up every day, and the decisions that we make, the way we feel about ourselves, and everything else. But as scripture says, and what's going on today, it's like they're taking advantage. It's really like they're taking advantage. And God spoke to me even about the food market. He spoke to me. None of this is trustworthy anymore. Like, I just want to go vegan at this point. I don't want to eat their meat. I don't want to drink their milk. I don't
I
even
need my
trust
10
their
piece.
It's like, what are you doing? They even had a article or something about veggies. They were sticking needles in veggies and stuff like that, like before they even picked, like, from the farm. And it's just too much. It's too much for me. Like, it's too much. And I get it. Like, I get it. You know, I definitely been wanting to sustain from eating certain foods. Like, I even went pescatarian for a while. But there's some people that can't even imagine going without a burger and going without a steak. And, you know, we all going to turn into chickens, right? And I told you, Popeye's chicken, I'm telling you, they the chicken from Who Cloned Tyrone, because everybody and their mother want them wings. You just keep eating them. Like, I want some right now. It's that bad. So, you know, we got to be stronger in our vessels, because this is not something that is an easy process, but it's a necessary process. So we talked about last time we talked about merchants becoming princes. And literally with them being able to have the financial opinions and what we should do, how we should live, how we're governed. Do you consider that? I mean, besides Elon Musk, who else can you think of off the top of your head that has made some bad decisions when it came to the merchants, becoming princes, being in positions of power and authority? Is there anyone else that comes to mind other, because the only one I could think of to have a good example is Elon Musk. Is there anybody else you could think of?
Okay. Bill Gates, Donald Trump, and all the other nameless CEOs that control the majority of what your daily life looks like. Mark Zuckerberg. So all of these people that I've named, they are people who their ambition got the best of them, would be the best way for me to describe it. And ambition is not a bad thing. It's a great thing. But it's good so long as you consider wisdom. Every decision you're making, from the first time you recognize that you can make a decision, is affecting everyone in some way. And the more involved you are in the public, the more impact your decision begins to have, especially when there are people who are trusting you. So you create this thing, and this thing helps people in such a way where millions latch on, and you created it. Well, that's trust. The public trusts you. You created this thing, it works. And because it works, they trust you. So you have the responsibility to not violate that trust. And this is where it gets sticky, because stakeholder capitalism is supposed to address that. The trust of the people should not be violated. If you are McDonald's, I should be able to trust that if I'm getting a beef burger from you, that it's not genetically modified, that it did not come out of a test tube. So with those names that we mentioned, this is what stakeholder capitalism is trying to address on the surface. It's just on the surface. Okay. And if you listen to me, you're going to hear how deception works. Okay. So there's a real issue with all of the names that I named. And the real issue is the public has given their trust. We trust Mark with our data. We trust Bill Gates with data and honest use of technology. We trust Elon Musk with, again, data, right? We trust other major companies with our food, stuff that goes in our body, right? And the issue that we've run into with trusting these people is that they are doing things that bring us harm. So McDonald's would be an easy example. It's been shown in America that a lot of the meat that they are giving us comes from a test tube. Just to keep it simple. It's not actually real beef, real chicken. Or it is real chicken, but it's cloned We don't know what the effects of a cloned animal are in the body. We don't know if it's giving you any nutrition. Are you getting any protein from a clone? It's just like watermelons. We can't trust our farmers. Watermelons that are seedless, that's not good for you. It does nothing for you. It only gives you the sensation of being full, but it gives you no nutritional value. So now we have to be more careful and more vigilant. And so the lure of stakeholder capitalism is to say, hey, guys, you have a responsibility to the public to not deceive them. If you're growing seedless watermelons, you need to let the public know that it has zero nutritional value. It's just something that tastes good. And that's it. And you won't die, but it doesn't do anything. If you want it to do something for you, to be valuable to your body, then you must eat a seeded watermelon. You have to discuss this. You have to state it. Same with Facebook and Meta. What are you doing with the people's public data? Why do you have my information? You have to make it known. Don't hide it. Make it known. This is your responsibility to your stakeholders. Your stakeholders are your consumers. So that's the lure of stakeholder capitalism. But what stakeholder capitalism actually is, what it will be if it's adopted, and it may be, is businesses operating based on the government interest, not the public's actual interest. The government interest is only to survive and to stay in power. That's what the government's interest is. The government has no interest in the individual at all. You can look, it does not. It appears to. A government's ability to have interest in the individual is based on those individuals making a demand on the government. But governments tend to try to suppress that. And so in moving into this next system that these people are proposing, it tightens it up in a way that you wouldn't notice until it was way too late.
Okay, so if I'm understanding correctly, more CEOs are holding on to capital. That is, they're holding on to a significant amount of capital that can make an impact on the overall economy. And so we have businesses like Amazon, Instagram, Apple. I put Apple, but like iCloud in parentheses because of data that you were mentioning, and even like grocery businesses or whatever. A lot of these businesses can't have a hand on their stakeholders. So like the people, and when I mean the people, I mean, if we're talking about Apple and technology, we're talking about data. We're talking about businesses that are bringing in food supply. You mentioned McDonald's, then we're talking about people who are consuming this. They all have major implications onto the economy as a whole. And because of that, some of them are a part of the World Economic Forum. So you have businesses like Microsoft, JP Morgan, you have healthcare businesses, Johnson & Johnson. A lot of these businesses are involved in the World Economic Forum that can cause them to be more focused on the business, which can thus create like a snowball effect and how it can affect the economy versus being selfless and focusing on how this is going to affect the economy and then kind of jumping ahead before it kind of goes downhill. that's where we at with it. Is that a good explanation? No. I guess so.
Yeah, that's a pretty good explanation. It's a good way to try to make it more simple, but yeah.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so first question: why do modern societies mourn economic loss more deeply than moral or humanitarian loss?
It's because it's a particular mindset around money. So the mindset around money has been that if you don't have it, you don't have anything. And if you don't have anything, then you are nothing. That's the mindset. And everybody's bought into that. So since we've all bought into that, then yes, you would mourn economic loss more deeply than you would moral or humanitarian loss, because until you have had a certain amount of money, you okay, I don't know another way to say it. So I've been in a position where I didn't have no money, and I really felt the way I just mentioned. Felt like, man, I ain't got no money, so I ain't nothing. Let me give me some money. Then I had some money, and when I got some money, I was like, man, money ain't it. That's when my moral really kicked in. That's when my humanitarian piece really kicked in. Because I had some money. Money wasn't really a problem. I got to see what problems were. And money's not really the problem. You start to see the blessing in not having money. I mean, there's a blessing in not having a lot of money, because money, if you fall into that trap, you start to worship it. And when you start to worship it, it dictates your mood. And I severely hated that. Money dictating my mood. That's a problem, but everybody suffers from that problem because we've all bought in to that mindset. So the real question in my mind is, how do you move from mourning economic loss to recognizing morals, recognizing the human? That's my real question. That's my personal question that I'm working through. How do you do that? How do you get people to recognize, like, I mean, the money's there, that's cool, but that ain't it. This is it. And this is where we're trying to move to. And there's countless other people who've mentioned it. Like, once you got the money, then you recognize money wasn't really the problem. It was a problem, but it wasn't the problem.
Yeah, I agree, because the mood thing, God is big on that. Like, if you allow anything, he don't care what it is. Like, if you allow anything, a relationship, a job, a car, money, if you allow anything to shift your character, you're now out of alignment. Like, understand, Jesus is so lovable and gentle and a gentleman. And Abba is Abba, right? Like, he is the same. Like, he's not going to change. But at the same token, Abba's like, remember who you are, right? He's more stern. He's like, remember who you are. You're made in my image. Remember who you are. Those things should not shift your character. And Jesus is like, no, let's go and calm down. Let's go and get ourselves together, right? Through the Holy Spirit. Because at the end of the day, when you are made after his image, your character, your integrity, and your morals has to all be aligned. You can't allow these worldly things to shift you. It becomes an idol. It literally becomes an idol because it shifted your character, and your character is in your identity, and your identity is in him. Why? Because if the enemy want to shift your character, he wants to play with you. All you got to do is take something from you. And what's going to happen? This is why Job went through what Job went through. You know what I'm saying? Job was the most protected man. Him and God was tight. He really had no problems. God protected Job 10 toes down. But he took everything from Job as a test to see if he'll fold. And it was everything around him, his wife, his own wife, like, curse God and die. That God you serve, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, that wasn't the case. It was about his character not being shifted because of his possessions was taken away, and his children. His oxen, his wealth, his moneymaker, everything was taken away. God came down saying, where were you when I created heaven and earth in 6 days? The minute he got prideful and he started bucking his chest up a little bit, like, I might as well just be dead. You know, he was mourning, but he started getting slick with the mouth. And God was like, well, where were you when I created heaven and earth in 6 days? Can you lock Leviathan's jaw? That's the only demon that can't be cast out of a person. It's the only demon that nobody can lay hands and cast out of a person. God made it clear. Can you lock Leviathan's jaw? No. Only person that can lock Leviathan's jaw is God. And from my discernment, God humbles the pride, those who have pride, the proud who has pride, through humility. He humbled them. They got to learn through lessons. So only demon can't be cast out. And so with that being said, you cannot allow it to shift your attitude. And even with them who is trying to control us through the system of narcissism, because that's all it is, through the Jezebel spirit, through the system of narcissism and intimidation, want to take our food stamps away, want to take the food stamps away, want to shut the government down. They were so mad doing all these things to try to provoke us, get us to be all out of character and out of whack. No, we good. We good. We good. We learning how to stand on our own 2 feet. That's what this is. And so next question. What does the market's reaction to the presidential statements reveal about how centralized economic confidence has become?
So market's reaction to the president's statements. Well, it shows that everybody has confidence in centralized economics. They don't want polarized economics. And most of Trump's statements show polarized economics. It's polarizing in the sense that the all of the moves that he's making, all of the plays that he's making with his poker hand are ones that are not normally made. And it's because it's outside of the norm, it's shaking a lot of things up. It's ruffling a lot of feathers. The most recent move that he's made, not even really been the most recent statement he made had to do with him taking Venezuela's oil. And his most recent stuff, somebody said, well, what are you going to do with it? He said, I'm probably going to keep it. I might sell it. But likely I'm probably going to keep it. I think we'll keep it. I mean, where are we going to? Well, why did you get rid of that president? You're not even allowed to do this illegal. Well, no, it's not illegal because we don't recognize his government. He's a dictator, so we don't recognize him. And that's why he could do it. And that's actually true. But with that statement, but people don't know is what a lot of people don't know is, well, why would you do that? Why would you just take the oil? Well, the reason he would take their oil is because they made an agreement with China to use China's currency and not the dollar. And that's why he did what he did. And so that agreement allowed China to give Venezuela a loan. And what China will do is when they give you a loan, they extend the loan. They extend the terms. It seems favorable, but what they've really done is they've strangleholded you. So now you always owe them. And since you always owe them, well, what do you have that's valuable? Well, Venezuela has oil, largest in the world. So China was trying to get that oil too. And Trump said, I'm taking it from you. So now Venezuela is just in debt to China. China has no stake to get the oil because the United States has the oil. And that was the move. Most people didn't see that. Didn't understand. Well, what is he doing? It just looks like he's just being a tyrant. In one way, yeah, he is. And then in another way, he's playing the game. And this is the game because China's moving for power and they're trying to take power from the United States. So this is the game that we're locked in. This is the game that he's locked in anyway. But that's so everyone else's reaction, our reactions to say, look, we really are trying to get the United States on board with everything else the rest of the world is doing. Everybody is showcasing that they would rather centralized. And so that's their reactions. Their reactions are centralized. So nobody likes, even though the United States can, as a government, they benefit from what Trump just did. As heinous as it was, the United States government benefits greatly from that move that Trump made that looks so horrific. And it is horrific. It was bad. Just make no mistake about it. But when you're operating in the interest of your government and national security, right? That was the move that needed to be made, given you see the threat of China. And China has always been a threat. And then you see Russia sending military now down to Venezuela to combat the United States. Why? Because they're allies with China. So then this is the move. So this is where we are. But all of the businesses are going to react and show that they would rather centralized economics. They have more confidence in that because in their minds, well, that's more peaceable. Let's just go along and get along. The United States has never been that way. They've always been about United States first, always. Donald Trump may be the last president to be that way. Your next president is going to be more agreeable. Way more agreeable. Because they don't know how to deal with the combat. There's other decisions that they can make. I'm not going to get into those. But they would be too scared to make those decisions too. Because they're addicted to not feeling so isolated. They're addicted to being the number one power. And what you're witnessing is the power is coming out of their hands. Slowly losing grip on the power. That's what the United States is used to. They're used to running the world. And we're witnessing that go away. It's going away. One way or the other is going away. We don't know really how it's going to pan out, how it's going to shape out, but that's going away. Because even with this latest move, China is still coming into parity with the United States. Right now, the United States would be like here, and China would be like here. More like here. But because China is rising like that, once they become parity, once this happens, you better learn Mandarin. Because the next thing that's going to happen is this. And once that happens, you have to know Mandarin. English means nothing now. We're the power. And Russia's supporting it. So that's where that's moving to. Something else entirely is going to happen. I'll speak to it when it starts to rear its head. But for now, that's what we're witnessing.
That's one major thing that God told me as to why he used Trump, because Trump is a Persian king, which is designed strictly for war. And so, even with King Cyrus, right, all of it is designed strictly for war. But the reason why God had us go over the book of Joel, the book of Habakkuk, the book of Isaiah, book of Revelation, um, all of these books, because they all makes up of his voice and what he's doing now. But what he highlighted to me is, don't forget, look at Joel. He uses the enemies to bring judgment, and then he judges the enemies. So understand, don't get it twisted. Trump is just a tool, but him being in position, there's certain rules, there's certain laws he put in place that helps us a little bit. He stopped the whole COVID thing, the mandatory vaccines, and that helps us because it protects our bloodline, right? And so, with that being said, it's not going to alter our DNA. It protects our bloodline, which our blood is really where our relationship is with God. It holds memory. And so, these things are important for the anointing. Our blood has to remain the same. It can't be touching the blood. Now, it can't be putting chips in us, none of that. Just that. This is why the mark of the beast is highlighted in the Bible. And so, all of these things are important. And we have to understand that, God is a strategic God. He literally knows the end from the beginning. And so there's some notes that Bree is bringing up. So I'm going to turn the mic over to Bree and let her speak about the book of Obadiah. There's some highlights that she has discovered that she wants to add to today's chat.
Yeah. So to your point, to both of you guys' point, one, yours just in terms of Trump being used as a tool. So funny, my screen is going out. I rebuke that in the name of Jesus. But nah, because the Lord can use Trump as a tool, he could definitely use Trump's enemies as a tool as well. And I guess like a reference for that can be Obadiah's verse 7. All your allies will turn against you. They will choose to chase you from your land. They will promise you peace while plotting to deceive and destroy you. Your trusted friends will set traps for you, and you won't even know about it. Now I'm being reminded when we all found out that Russia and was it, I don't know if it was China or Korea. Oh, please forgive my ignorance. But I remember when both of them was in a picture together, everyone was like, hold up, what? Like, when did this start happening? I thought y'all was beefing. Like, and so I guess it's just a reference point back to the scripture. But another thing that I wanted to highlight was verses 10 through 14. So pretty much I was saying how Obadiah describes how the Edomites chose self-interest over responsibility. And this kind of, before I even go further, with that one line, that should make you start thinking about a lot of businesses that are, again, part of the World Economic Forum or businesses that just hold a lot of power as it pertains to economy. So if we're thinking about the Edomites, let's just think about those businesses before I move forward. So rather than helping their relatives, and relatives meaning your brother and sister in Christ, your brother and sister, your fellow American, they stood by while allowing them to suffer. And so we can think about like Mark Zuckerberg, for example, him building a whole bunker. And there's other like billionaires building these bunkers because they're looking out for self. They like, listen, I gotta save my family. I gotta save my bread. I don't know what y'all gonna do, but I got enough money to build a bunker. So it's kind of like selfishness. You can take that same mentality in terms of sharing sharing people's personal data. They're sharing these people's personal data for their own good, for their own business outcomes. Now, do I know the details of that? I do not. However, we do know that it is to further their business and not to protect their fellow American, aka their relatives. So they stood by while allowing people to suffer. Despite having access to connections and resources, they definitely have the ability to say, you know what, we ain't gonna go in that direction, or maybe that's not the best business deal. They decide to still be in their selfish mindset, going back into Obadiah, where God was talking about, you on a hill. It's like you're building a nest, so you could build a nest all the way in the stars, and it doesn't mean that I'm not going to bring you down. And so they're doing all of these different things to, AKA, protect themselves, to sit high, look low, not knowing that they're actually going to be brought low. So it's just kind of like, how does this connect back to scripture? How is God actually bringing this judgment? And so that was just my insight.
Because for one, when God has made you a gatekeeper, you are responsible to provide prosperity in any form, whether spiritual elevation, you sharing wisdom and knowledge, revelation, you training the disciple to use their gifts, whether you have information about networking and you help people with credit scores, whatever business God blessed you with, whatever knowledge, wisdom, intelligence God blessed you with, is for his people, right? It's for the church. It's for us to share, fellowship, and all to rise. Right? We was talking about equality, right? And I put the picture on the screen where the shortest person had the biggest box to be able to reach up, that they were standing on, to be able to reach up to get the apple off the tree, right? So it's all about everybody having equality, everybody being able to come up together, right? To rise together, be fruitful, right? And so when you gatekeep information and you gatekeep help, we're just going to say help, right? You're still wrong in God's eyes because you knew the information and you didn't share when you saw somebody in trouble. You want to chastise them. You want to see them suffer. You want to see them squall, or whatever you call it, right? That's a spiritual imprisonment because now you made yourself superior to them when you got the tools to help them get out of that situation, but you don't want to give it to them. That is still a form of control and narcissism. And so God is bringing judgment on that too. He said the same pit you dug for them, you're going to fall in that. The same one. And unfortunately, with them having all of this power, we have to come out of being dependent on them in this world system and become more dependent on God because he's the only one that's going to provide for us. Well, if you've seen Leave the World Behind that Michelle Obama and Barack Obama produced, there was nothing left but those bunkers. Where people created homes underground. You had to live underground. It costs a lot of money to create a home underground. A lot of money. Because you got to dig it up. You got to provide the piping system for the bathrooms and the water, the feed, the eat. You got all of this stuff and you ain't got nothing. Nothing. And so I'm going to bring up this last question because we're running out of time. Aaron, the World Economic Forum promotes global cooperation and economic restructuring. From a biblical perspective, as close as you can get, what safeguards must exist to prevent economic unity from becoming economic control?
So to honestly answer this question, what I am aware of is the only way you can do this without economic control being a thing where a few people control what's going on. There's only one way I'm aware of that you can do that. Well, there's two ways. One, people have to resort to their own communities. We have to learn to trust first ourselves and then one another, and not put all of our hope in just a few people, and believing that just a few people can make these complex decisions for us in our complex individual lives. More than 7 billion people on the planet, and 0.5% of that is making decisions for all of them. That doesn't make any sense, right? And so when you have that, those people are going to make decisions that are in their best interest, while making you believe that it's in all people's best interest. Not so. Or at least not with this group anyway. So getting into your own community, communion, come together, learning what it is to be interdependent one on another. Actually know your neighbor. Can't go to the grocery store today, but everybody's growing something in their backyard. So what do you have? Well, I got some pears. Great. I got some tomatoes. Great. I'll give you some pears. You give me some tomatoes. Simple as that, right? Now, I mean, it can get more complex, but that's what our interdependence is about. Us trusting in one another, loving one another, loving ourselves. So that's one way. The other way is, okay, if we're going to still do this system, do not force people into one choice. Right now, the choice is digital. That's what this group would like. And they disguise it with harmony for the planet. They're using economics as the metric. And if you're not in a digitally advanced economy, then you will suffer. That's the messaging. So if you're not digitally advanced, if you're off grid, you will suffer. That's the message. Because the few control all the resources. That's deception. They control the resources that they give out. But they can't control all the resources. I can still go to the water and fish and get my own fish. I can still grow my own garden. I can still do certain things on my own. Coming out of her is something that's been said, right? Come out of her, my people. Well, what does that actually mean? It means separate yourself from this system and this government. Create your own. That's called building a plebiscite. When you build this plebiscite, that's you making a declaration between your 5 families that, hey, we govern ourselves, and this is our formal government. We have an educational system. We have a medical system. We have a legal system. And we have the right to govern ourselves as we choose. And we choose not to partake in that particular system. We will play nice with you, but we govern ourselves in this way over here with these lands that we control. And so everybody who's agreed with that, well, they have their own land, which means they have their own resources, which means the resources that these people have, well, they're just going to make it look like it's better, but we already know it's not better because it's all fake. Our stuff would be real. We're really farming the land. We're really using water. We're really purifying the water from the earth because she has her own purification system. So that's what that looks like, to come out of her. It's first mindset, then execution.
Okay, so thank you for that, because that's the truth. We talked about bartering on my podcast, my audio version of TTU Radio. Um, we talked about bartering a long time ago, me and Lay. And it's something that some people don't know how to do, when a lot of people are still used to gatekeeping, right? People want to keep what they know, what they got, what they have developed for themselves. And so, Bree, you want to go ahead and give the comment that you made about the community?
Yeah. I'm still like marinating. So forgive me. But okay, I do agree with the community. Um, and even before I move forward, like onlookers, anybody like viewing this video, I think this is the purpose of like these conversations, to offer different perspectives, whether, you know, life experience, biblical, whatever it is. Therefore, we could just lay it out on a table and like really truly like talk about it. I feel like these type of views is something that is straight away from, because people don't like to be uncomfortable. So like, let's just get into it. All right. So I agree in terms of like community. I think this speaks to the necessity of like the church. And I think this is why like I'm seeing Jesus like flipping tables. I feel like this is why he was like upset, because when he saw all of the marketers having their tables set up, and they getting money off of the temple because it's straight away from community, but you know, being a little bit more selfish. And so that selfishness came from greed, which then leads into where we are today. I mean, let's just call it what it is. However, I think this is why Jesus was sending those different epistles in Revelations to those churches and really holding them accountable. Some he was giving them, a green flag to, and others he was definitely raising that red flag to say like, hey, I'm putting y'all on a pedestal, so to speak. I don't want to say a pedestal, but you know what I mean. I'm holding you guys accountable, I should say, because the way that you're moving could cause other onlookers to mimic it, and that is not the true walk with me. That is not the overall goal that the Lord has set for y'all. And I think that when we talk about community, yes, community is making sure that your brother gets some money and they're taken care of. Community is also making sure that you're spiritually feeding people the true word of God. And I think that's another reason why wisdom is needed in the church, because at the end of the day, with all of the things going on right now in this world, people are scared about their food stamps. People are still losing jobs. Like, you can look on LinkedIn and scroll and see that a lot of the jobs that are posted on LinkedIn are actually fake. They're not real. So the scarcity is there. So like, what are people going to lean on? And with God, using Trump as a tool, regardless of how we feel about him, I think at the end of the day, the Lord wants to bring us back to that community. And I feel like this is another reason why he's putting so many emphasis on the church. Like, hey, when these people come back, are y'all gonna be able to handle that? These are people's salvations that we're talking about here. Now let's get into discipleship, because not only are you baptized, but are you really walking with Christ? Are you reading the word? Is there anybody that can supply you with some type of answers if need be? And so when you say, come out of her, is more so like, hey, this means we set up our own systems? Or is it really saying, from a biblical standpoint, come out of her and I want y'all to come back to the original system? I want y'all to come back to everything that I already laid out before that y'all strayed away from. So I think like that's where my mind was going, but just interested to, hear your thoughts, piggybacks or what have you.
And you are absolutely right. That's really what it's about. Even for myself with my health problems, God was showing me how, well, Aaron was talking to me about the herbal way, the hill and stuff like that. And God was talking to me how they just corrupted everything that he originally built and designed. And so people start to veer away from it because they control the way we see it, right? And we got codependent on medicine, right? And then what happened? They start jacking up the prices of the meds, and then they start messing with the insurance, where it's hard to get insurance now. It's all the same thing. It's all a system of control. But ultimately, right, the Bible always talked about protecting God's presence. It was always about God's presence. So when God says come out of her, coming out of the world, it's about coming back into his presence. From the Old Testament to the New Testament, it's always been about his presence, his protection, and intimacy, having a relationship with him. That's what it's always have been about. Sure. Can we go into a new government? Sure. Aaron talks about the tribal government all the time. We can, sure, but even if you go into a new government, God is still calling you into the relationship with him. There's no difference. And so, sorry, y'all. We're going to have to continue this in the next episode.
I feel like it was just getting good.
Yeah, but that's what we're going into the next episode, and we hope to bring up our other guests soon. I'm waiting for a response back, but I think it should be a go. I think he's ready. This is the movie, guys. This is the movies I was telling y'all about. Minority Report. Now, this is an old movie with Tom Cruise, but this is the movie where he was working for the company in AI. And literally, he was freaking, they had little capsules of, I want to say energy, personality, like little capsules of these things where you can take it and inhale it. Because what happened was he was suffering, and it was because of the energy, the oxygen in the world was messed up. They had two societies. They had one where cars was on the ground, and they had another one where they had these high roads, the cars that fly. And there were two societies that they was living in, and they framed him. He really didn't do what they thought he did. And they framed him, and it was hard for him to live, to do anything, because the whole world was artificial intelligence. What he eat, what he saw. Minority Report was them taking account. It was them taking account, a roster of every person, right? They were controlling the crimes. They were monitoring the crimes. They were monitoring everything. But when there was a short number on the Minority Report, then they would have to go and look for the person. They would have to go and seek them. And he had to hide in a tub full of cold water to stay off of their energetic monetization, so they couldn't find him. Like, because they was chasing him through energy, through computer recognition, and through his energy. They had little spiders that they were sitting under the doors, going into people's houses, scanning their eyeballs, trying to find him. And when the spider's crawling through the door, all you got to do is freeze and don't move. And then this is normal now. This is normal in their society, the New World Order. Those spiders crawl under your door, and they come in here, and they looking for somebody. They looking for the robber. They looking for whoever. They trying to scan your eyeballs. Little spider crawl up on you. You got to sit there, open your eyes, let them scan you, and then they go on about what they day. That was the new norm. And he was fighting for his life. He was fighting for his freedom when he ain't even do nothing. So I say watch it. It's a really, 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 really good movie. I might even watch it again. Also watch Leave the World Behind. Literally, Barack was trying to tell us. Because I believe when he got in the White House, He didn't think it was the way that it ended up being when he saw that they was really trying to control society. And I think that was a way for him and his wife of giving back to God's people by sowing this seed into us so that we will wake up. But it's literally called leave the world behind. Come out of that mindset so that when everything get affected, you don't get affected. Listen, this is our cue. We've been rocking out. It's an hour and some change. Listen, we did good. We did good. As wrapping it up, he showed me that he got more and more to be speaking on. But I think that we're going to pick up on the next episode is going to be what Brianna was talking about community, because oddly, me and Aaron was talking about the roots and the bridges. We're talking about creating a platform where we can talk to people about the foundations of the world and give some resources and some advice and everything like that. And God just kind of lined us up right to the front door. So, listen, thank you all for watching TTU TV. This is just Jessica Bill. I thank my host for being here, my co-host, and my guest. And until next episode, guys, just listen, leave some comments. We can reply and we can have some dialogue going on. All right?